Welcome to the Power of Your Mind podcast. I'm Victoria Gallagher, your host. Have you been attempting to use law of attraction or hypnosis to attract financial abundance, a soulmate, or career success? Would you like to be happy, motivated, and successful? Have better health, enjoy more fulfilling relationships, overcome struggle, and gain mastery over your life? Then join me on this amazing self-help podcast where you'll unleash the power of your mind. I'll be sharing 20 years of wisdom and techniques of hypnotherapy, law of attraction, visualization, meditation, personal growth, positive affirmations, and other effective methods to help you tap into the great power which resides in your mind and become the best version of yourself. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You're listening to episode number 79. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction coach and #1 best-selling author of Practical Law of Attraction, Align Yourself with the Manifesting Conditions and Successfully Attract Your Desires. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps. So be sure to stop by HipTalk.com and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course. And for our listeners who found us through the Power of Your Mind podcast, you can get 35% off your first order of hypnosis downloads when you apply the code podcast to your shopping cart. Also, be sure to download our latest HypnoCloud app from the iTunes store. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Jim Stavis. Jim Stavis was diagnosed as a teenager with juvenile type 1 diabetes. He was forecasted to have a shortened lifespan filled with things such as kidney and heart disease, blindness, and amputations. Jim had to develop a mindset that would use this disease to motivate him versus define him. Ultimately, he had to have a triple organ transplant, heart, kidney, and pancreas, 15 years ago, which saved his life, which he now shares in an inspiring way with others, including through his book, When Hope is Your Only Option. Today, Jim is going to share some of his insights on how to harness the power of your mind when hope is your only option. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Victoria. I'm glad to be with you.
Yes, I'm glad you're here with me. This is really quite an interesting story that you have here to share with our audience. And so I'm really curious to dive in and dissect, how somebody can be given this kind of news that you were given. And here you are, you're still here with us.
I am. I'm happy to say that I'm still doing well 15 years post-transplant.
That's crazy. It's really kind of a miracle. It really is.
I've been told that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to define that, but I have been told that I'm a walking miracle. So
yeah,
it's nice to hear.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I just, I don't know if very many people could handle that the way that, it seems like you were able to handle that. And I truly, I believe in the power of your mind, but so few people understand the power. And so it's great that somehow or another at such an early age, you were able to get into the power of your mind. So what was that like after you received this early diagnosis at 17? I mean, how is it that you were able to develop this mindset that would inspire you versus the way probably most people would be demoralized?
Well, when I think back at that time, and obviously as a 17-year-old being told that your life was going to prematurely end and that you're going to have all of these kind of scary, dire health occurrences throughout my life, it gave me great pause, and it was very scary. My parents really didn't have an answer for me particularly. And so I pretty much just had to develop a mindset, which was that hopefully through the advances in medical science, that there would be a solution for me somewhere down the road. And the thing that I had to do was kind of temper my current feelings with a belief system that everything was going to be okay and that I would deal with whatever would come upon me when it happened, and not to get obsessed with it then. And I think that in keeping it in perspective was probably the key to that, is trying not to get too far ahead of yourself, which we all tend to do. Meaning that if we're given a diagnosis, or we're given a situation of adversity, we have a tendency to kind of move 3 steps down the road before letting it play itself out. And that was, for me, the big challenge, was kind of just not getting too far ahead of myself.
Yeah, it's so wonderful that you had the insight to tap into that, because it's so true. I mean, you never know what can really happen, and we can use our imaginations for in a very detrimental, dangerous way, but we can also use our imaginations in a very positive way, or
That's right.
like it seems that you were able to just stay present.
Right. That's correct. So,
and in this moment, everything's really okay.
yes, in other words, yes, I had a problem. Yes, it needed to be dealt with. But the future complications, which is the byproduct of the diabetes, that was still years to come. So I really wasn't having to contend with kidney and heart failure and blindness and the like. I just knew that at the rate that I was going, based on statistics, that was what they envisioned would happen to me.
Right. So when you were told that the only way to survive, now fast forwarding, was to receive this triple organ transplant, something that had never actually been done before, how were you able to tap into the power of your mind?
Well, that was similar to that original diagnosis that I received. It was pretty shocking, but again, I think my belief system was so strong that I had overcome adversity in the past, that I believed that I would be able to overcome that particular moment in time. And so when the doctor said to me, was kind of interesting, as the doctor, who was like the chief of cardiology at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and we had a conversation later because he wrote the foreword to my book. And he said to me that as a doctor, you get used to the reactions that you get from patients when you give them a dire forecast. And he felt like my reaction was so unusual, because most people, pretty much almost faint or, break down or whatever. And my reaction was, I looked at him and said, okay, well, let's get it on. I'm ready for this. This is something that I'm going to be the first. And he felt like that was such an unusual reaction to being told that I needed 3 organs, which had never been done before. And he wasn't sure if it had ever been done anywhere.
Wow.
So
you didn't even flinch. Like it was not even a second.
No, my wife looked at me like I was an alien. She thought, oh my God, what is wrong with my husband? But I really believed that this was my destiny, and that it was something that I was going to do. And it turned out to be the truth. So
it's almost as if, I mean, the way that you explain it, just the feeling, the sense that I get from that is just, it's almost like you looked at it as a gift that you were being given in that moment, and just something that You just somehow like really just knew that this had this had to be done.
I thought it was destiny was
Mm-hmm.
number one, meaning I felt like I had gone through all of this kind of steps prior to this, and that this was going to be the ultimate step,
Mm.
but it was just part of that journey. And I think also because things had always kind of worked out for me in the past, I had a positive outlook that why should they stop happening to me now?
Oh, that's a great way of thinking about it. Yeah.
So I was fortunate because I had a lot of things working in my favor. I
Mm-hmm.
had a top hospital, top doctors, a great support system with friends, family, and a really strong belief system. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that all three of those things were really important for me to have a successful outcome.
Yeah. Would you say that there were some lessons that you
Abs-
learned from
abs-
this?
Absolutely. In fact, let's say this happened in 2005 and 6. I had the kidney and heart in 2005 from a 17-year-old donor. And then I had the pancreas 10 months later from a 19-year-old girl, another donor. But about in 2012, I had a business partner who unfortunately contracted an infection that killed him 2 years later. So in 2014, he passed away. And I learned in his tragedy, kind of, he had the flip side of what I had in my victory, in that he didn't necessarily have the support system. He wasn't going to the right hospital, and he really didn't have the right mindset. He didn't have the will to overcome the adversity. And I probably learned as much in his defeat as I did in my own victory.
If you find value in this personal growth related material, I strongly recommend that you sign up for your $1 trial to my Personal Growth Club. Just head on over to personalgrowthclub.com and get a whole month of premium Personal Growth Club video training materials, meditations. You also get 6 free hypnosis sessions that are valued at over $174, all for this trial of just $1. Even if you cancel, you can keep the 6 hypnosis sessions. That's my gift to you, and that's how confident I am that you are going to love Personal Growth Club. Go to personalgrowthclub.com and start your $1 1-month trial today.
That
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So what were some of the lessons that you can share with our audience on, just how you're able to overcome adversities in your life?
So in my book, I break it down into 3 stages. The first stage is the enduring stage, which is you have to get through whatever it is that, the loss, the pain, the suffering, whatever it is, you have to find a way to just kind of endure it, knowing that there is a way through it, but unfortunately it's hard to see when you're confronted by it. So it's kind of like what the Nike ad says, you just do it. That really is what it is. But that kind of leads into the second stage, which is the hope stage, which having a level of hope and belief system is what leads to change of attitude, change in behavior, and hopefully change in outcome, and that you can influence. And I view hope in not just like sitting on the couch and wishing for things to happen, but I think of hope as an active verb where you're actually doing things to ensure success. It could be It could be educating yourself, going on the internet, getting in a group of people that might be in a similar situation. It might be meditating or praying or seeking counseling. It's not just standing by and waiting for things to happen.
Right.
And then the third phase, which to me I'm clearly in myself, is the prevail stage, which is after you've gotten through the adversity, you've climbed the mountain. Now, how are you going to use that to change your life and the life of others? And to me, that's probably the most fulfilling stage, because you actually have the ability to make change for good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like what you say about hope, that, it's not, it's something you do actively. It's
Right.
not just kind of standing by and wishing,
Right.
without any movement. And,
Right.
you're actually doing things that speaks that hope.
Right.
I like that. So what would you say in that realm, what would you say was your source of hope, which you describe in your book? And
Right. So the story behind that term, when you go through the transplant process, they have to evaluate that you're able to get through the surgery and the recovery, and that you're a good candidate for the organs that you're being given. So they interview you with a social worker, and I'm being asked a battery of questions, most of which I'm rolling my eyes at. and then she asked me a question, which was, "What is your source of hope?"
She asked you that?
Yeah, she asked and I thought, well, that's an interesting question. What is my source of hope? And I kind of pondered it for a while, and I thought, well, it would be easy to say something like, well, it's my faith or it's my family. But I really thought about it, and I realized that there's more to it than that. It's kind of what drives you, what makes you get up every day and fight the fight, and inspires you to do your best. And I came to a little bit what we talked about earlier when I was confronted with the question of organ donation, of transplant, was first that I had a feeling of destiny, that my life was designed. If something was meant to happen, it would happen. If I was meant to live, I would live. If I was meant to die, I would die. So from that standpoint, it was kind of fate. Two is that I had an optimistic view of life, meaning the glass is half full versus half empty. And I'd always been that type of person that believed that good things generally happen to me, so why should they stop happening now? And those two principles really became kind of the foundation of my source of hope. So for everybody, it's probably different. And I think that it's probably a good exercise for people to think about what is their source of hope. I think it's fundamental to what drives us.
It's a really good question, and I agree. I think it is definitely something that people need to consider, because, I mean, we always have our ups and our downs, and whether they're as extreme as what you went through or something minor, we still have to kind of consider, like, well, what is it that inspires us? What is it that's driving us?
What is it?
What is it?
Right.
And that's probably, that purpose. It's that,
That's correct.
And I think so many people too that get into these extreme, like almost near-death experiences,
right,
or things like that. There is usually a greater purpose. And maybe it came, maybe it came in the same package as the experience, or maybe as something you had to dig into and figure out along the way. But yeah, I do see that as a theme a lot with people that have gone through these extreme situations where, your life is called into question, and your purpose is called into question, and your destiny is called into question.
We oftentimes are confronted by things we would never, ever have thought that we would be.
Yeah. Wow. So, endure, hope, and prevail. Those are the
Right.
three main pillars of
Right.
this work.
That's right.
So, do you believe that everyone has the same capacity to utilize the power of their mind to overcome adversity? Is this something that we're born with, or is this something that we acquire over time?
I think it's a combination of things. So I do believe that, our upbringing and our genetics probably is a strong component to it to start, in that it's how we were raised and taught to believe, probably going back to when we were children, and how we got through adversity at a young age. So I do believe that it's something that we learn. And then, I think you learn through others as well. So you could have perhaps a friend that went through a hard time and got through it. And that could be a good example for you, so that when you are subjected to hard times, that you have the ability. And part of the reason that I wrote the book was really to be able to share the lessons with others, and kind of create a little bit of a guidepost for people that are going through hard times, and how I got through it, and hopefully how they can. And I think for some people it's easier than others. Like my partner that I explained to you here, I was the best example of how to get through hard times. I knew, I literally could speak to him for every problem that he encountered along the way, but he didn't survive. And for a long time, it really kind of haunted me that I wasn't able to give the message of hope to him so that he would have prevailed, but he never did. So.
Yeah, and that's sad, because not everybody maybe is able to, I guess we all just have our own paths.
Yes.
And
But I think, but to your question, I think that there's things that you can do that will, if you're one of those people that's more of a victim or a woe is me kind of personality, I think that there's things that you can do to change that. Your ways of looking at the world differently. Try and create an awareness of the good that's in your life. Start small. Take, every day, look at life a little different, and try and acknowledge the good things instead of focusing on the bad. And then perhaps over time, it'll just shift your belief system so that you're more positive than negative.
yeah. So that's really good, very good advice, because I think the more that we dwell on the negative, the more it kind of puts us in a state like, oh, the universe is working against me.
Right.
Or, whereas if you focus on the things that are going right, you can, you're going to attract, just like with the law of attraction, you're going to attract more of whatever it is that you're thinking about, whether it's the positive or the negative, the bad or the good.
I think surrounding yourself with positive people is an especially great thing to do, especially when you're going through hard times.
Absolutely. How are you doing these days?
Well, I'm incredibly blessed. And I've got an incredible amount of gratitude in my life relative to what I've been through, and being projected to not live past 50, and I'm next week I'll be having my 65th birthday. So
Wow, happy birthday. That
yeah,
is amazing.
I feel very proud about that. But on a personal level, my wife, unfortunately, is going through a little case of ovarian cancer. So now I'm trying to kind of help her navigate her way through some adversity, which fortunately she's got a very good mental outlook, in part because what she's had to do in being a part of my journey. Now I get to be a part of hers. My children, I have 3 children who have been incredible. They were incredible for me, and now they're being incredible for her. So I think that that's all part of the, kind of the hope package that we're on. So hopefully we'll get through this as well.
Hello, this is Victoria Gallagher. I hope you're enjoying listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. As a way of thanking you for listening, I'd like to offer you a one-time discount of 35% off your first order at hiptalk.com. Just go to hiptalk.com and enter the code PODCAST in the discount code area in your cart, and you'll receive 35% off your first order. Thank you so much for listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast. Yes, definitely. And I'm so sorry to hear about your wife, and, but I guess it's all part of both of your journeys together, and, part of this whole process and the destiny that the two of you have been given.
Well, my belief is that everybody eventually is touched with adversity, be it young or old, and there's no way to kind of prepare yourself for that. You just have to, once it kind of is in front of you, you have to muster the efforts to get through it, and you'll be stronger the next time for the next adversity. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
That's true. So, well, and unfortunately and fortunately, you've had quite a lot of opportunity to exercise that muscle.
Absolutely. So it gets stronger.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom that you've shared with us. I want to talk just a little bit about your book, When Hope is Your Only Option. And for our listeners who would like to get a copy of your book, how would you suggest that they get your book?
The book is available from most major booksellers like Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Last I saw it was still with Walmart. And I did a audible version, an audio version of it in my voice, which is also available through Amazon. I have a website, which is jimstavis.com, a Facebook page, which is called Jim Stavis Speaks, which I put blogs on, and some speaking engagements, that sort of thing. So I would say that people could get in touch with me through that. And I would like to leave you with a couple of thoughts, which I think are important to me and would be important to your audience. One is, if you have an opportunity to be an organ donor, I would encourage you to do so, because organ donation really does save lives. And there's over 120,000 people waiting for life-saving organs across the country. So wow. It is a very, very important cause to me. And then the second thing is, if you have diabetes, or if you know someone that has diabetes, the world is very different today than it was when I was diagnosed back in 1971, because the disease, there's so many advancements. You can live a very normal life today. And I don't want to scare people away like, oh my God, am I going to have a triple organ transplant? Because you're not. So, so that's an important disclosure that I want to make sure that people understand.
Yes, those are two very powerful messages to take away from this. Definitely, it doesn't hurt anything to give your organs away, and to be an organ donor. So, I mean, absolutely. I know that that's a choice that I've made and my husband's made, and I definitely hope people will take that to heart. And then, of course, to get yourself diagnosed early for the diabetes, and you could definitely be saving your life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and there's 5 times more diabetics today than there were back when I was diagnosed, which is it's a major disease now, but there are a lot of medical advancements that have been made both in maintenance, and hopefully the disease will ultimately be cured.
Yeah, I hope so too. I have hope that it'll eventually.
Good for you.
It'll eventually be. There'll be a cure. There's too many people that have suffered from that, almost unnecessarily too.
It's true. It's true.
So, well, thank you so much for all of your insights and giving our audience hope and sharing, and probably for some a new meaning of hope. And so once again, you can visit Jim on his website, jimstavis.com. Also, whenhopeisYourOnlyOption.com. You can also follow Jim on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Jim Stavis Speaks. And you can also go to Amazon and find a copy of his book, When Hope is Your Only Option, there in, I'm sure, all the formats, paperback, Kindle, and Audible. So yes. Thank you so much for your wonderful information and sharing your story and your insights with us today.
Thank you, Victoria.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends. And once again, be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast if not already. We can be found as Hip Talk on all our social media accounts. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, and sign up for your free self-hypnosis video training course at hiptalk.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Power of Your Mind podcast, and you'll be instantly notified the moment the next podcast becomes available. Also, please be sure to leave a rating and a review to tell us how you're enjoying these episodes, and that way you're making a contribution toward others getting to share in this valuable information. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. You've been listening to the Power of Your Mind podcast, brought to you by HipTalk.com, Personal Growth Club, and HypnoCloud apps available at iTunes.